Microsoft just announced its first gaming event of 2021, and a few questions we still need answered too. While it's not E3 gaming season, we are starting to understand Microsoft's plans for 2021 when it comes to gaming and at least conferences in some capacity. If you watched the podcast last week, I said that Microsoft told us that they were going to be having several gaming and just events throughout the year related to all sorts of products. But on this particular little video here, we're talking about gaming. And so let's just kind of dive into it here because Microsoft somewhat quietly announced their very first gaming event for 2021 and is going to be taking place February 23rd through the 24th. Now, this isn't strictly an Xbox game showcase. This is more of a how the Xbox and gaming sausage is made at Microsoft, which is really, really important for several reasons. And there's a few questions that we need to get answered as well, but we'll dive into that here in a second. So what is this event? It's actually gaming and AI focused. So that is what Microsoft is going to be distilling down. And you might be thinking, I don't really care about gaming and AI or something like that, but you honestly probably should. But who's going to be keynoting the event? Well, Phil Spencer. And if Phil Spencer is speaking at an event, you know that there is some significant prominence to the events, and you should probably be paying attention. And we also have Kareem Chowdhury, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name, you know I can't pronounce names, who pretty much owns cloud gaming at Microsoft. So if you like xCloud, you've got Phil Spencer and you've got Kareem. Those are some very high-profile names inside the Xbox org who are going to be speaking at the event. And so this is, I believe the intent of this is for Microsoft to start talking about how the sausage is made from their AI components inside of gaming. And the reason why this is important is this is where a lot of like longer horizon bets sort of materialize. You start to understand how Microsoft thinks about approaching gaming. There's going to be literally sessions on how they think about matchmaking, which is a big deal inside the world of Microsoft. And so if you could wind back the clock many years, this is where we would start to see the incubation for actually cloud gaming. So if you're interested in what's like coming down the pipeline in terms of features and functionality into the Xbox and honestly in the gaming world, like features, this is the type of event. It's a very, I don't want to say, this isn't a game showcase. This is a technology showcase for what is happening inside of gaming and how developers can build better games. It's going to be super interesting. I'm definitely going to be tuning in. But like I said, there's a couple sessions that are worth pointing out. There's like machine learning and optimal matchmaking sessions. There's things about music and using AI for musical landscape and opportunities in gaming. There's also game prototyping in the age of AI. So as you can see here, it's a lot about building out these really cool environments that makes use of Microsoft's AI technology and everything else. So this is happening here in about 2 weeks or something like that. And you do have to register for the event. Microsoft, I'm not even kidding. I found this out because I was targeted in a promoted tweet from Microsoft Developer and AI for this event. It came across my feed last night, and so then I clicked and found the webpage. So interesting little conference coming, but the fact that Phil and Kareem are speaking there means that you definitely want to be speaking. Peter Lee, if you're familiar with Microsoft R&D, is also going to be at the event. He is like the top of the top of research and development. So there's a lot of smart brains talking about AI and gaming, and I'm honestly kind of excited about it because this helps me help you understand what features are coming in the world of Xbox. This is not, I don't think, going to be things like announced for tomorrow, although, I mean, I guess they could come out and start talking about stuff coming out, but I'm not expecting an E3 style showcase by any means, which kind of brings up the other idea of like, hey, what are the other events that are coming down from Microsoft in the world of gaming? Well, we know of a couple. The reason why I pulled this specific session out is this felt very game developer conferencey, right? Like this is where like Microsoft starts to talk about, hey, building games, and game developer conference happens every spring, and actually it happens March 15th through the 19th, and there's always a lot of good sessions at GDC, which is actually where we saw, I believe for the first time, some of Microsoft's touch-enabled controls for cloud gaming on mobile devices came out at GDC. So we got to kind of put this into perspective of, I don't know if Microsoft is trying to set up the narrative for what they are going to talk about at GDC. I don't even actually know yet their full plans for being a part of GDC. I would imagine it is because they're pushing PlayFab a lot, which is good, and it's doing very well for them. But this is all sort of maybe leading into what's going to be conversations at GDC. And then, of course, we have the bigger events such as E3 in June. We still don't know Microsoft's full plans yet, yet. I'm assuming that they're going to be participating. I'm assuming that Sony will not be, but I believe it's going to be all virtual this year. Again, no surprise there. We're not back into the world of conferences yet, and we're still quite a bit of ways from that happening. So just keep that in mind that, these are the conferences coming down. Microsoft, I expect, is going to have some dedicated focused events somewhere along that timeline as well. At least that is what I am hearing. So we will just keep things going on there. And then throw in some other things in there that we are still waiting on. Now, I'm not expecting these to be announced, at least not at the February event, but we still haven't actually heard when EA Play is coming to the PC. Remember, at the end of December, Microsoft said, hey, this isn't happening, at least not on our initial timeline. And so we've plowed through January. We are almost halfway through February at this point, and we still don't actually know when that's coming. The other thing, too, we're still waiting on is when is xCloud coming to iOS and PC? Microsoft said it's happening early, and we're sitting here waiting. I'm hoping that it happens really soon, but we haven't gotten any indication yet on when the PC and iOS versions of xCloud are going to be coming out. So that is just another outstanding question, not outstanding in the positive, but just outstanding because we don't know what it is, question coming. But the other one that I'm really wondering about, and I've heard some rumors and information about the next big update for the software development kit. This is the kit that Microsoft is updating for developers out in the real world. They push out updates. It's when Microsoft can ship refinements and make their GDK just a little bit better. I believe there's an update supposed to come out in the spring. Now, keep in mind that just because it comes out in the spring doesn't mean the games are suddenly just going to take advantage of everything else. It's just going to help developers be more optimized and build better games. That is the other sort of big question that is coming out. And then finally, I'm still waiting for some of the big updates on the dashboard, right? We haven't gotten a significant Xbox update in quite some time, if I recall correctly. And so we're sitting here hanging out waiting for Microsoft to do all that. So it's gonna be an interesting few weeks here. We are now past like what I consider the holiday slump, which is like mid-December through honestly about half of January, where people either just took time off or whatever. We're back into like the all cylinders firing mode, and that is why we are starting to hear now about this gaming and AI related conference coming from Microsoft. I'm curious what Phil is actually going to keynote. Now, based on the descriptions of the event, it does feel like it's a little bit more casual, if you will, than say comparing everything to E3 is like the top of the top with they spend probably tens of millions of dollars to make that happen. This feels much more like fireside chatty sort of conversation, and it's virtual, so nobody's going to be going to this place in person. So just keep all of that in mind, kind of setting your expectations for when you're thinking about what to expect. But like I said, it's where the sausage is made. This is a very important look at gaming and AI if you truly want to understand. Because if you're wondering why I say that, because think about like all the studios that Microsoft's now going to own, right? Once the Bethesda acquisition closes, we all know that they've got, Halo, and they've got all these other titles. They all need AI for the grunts and the other, characters or the NPCs that are in the game. And where do they get some of that technology? Yes, some of it's homegrown, but when you have Microsoft in your back pocket, sitting around the corner with an R&D lab with Peter Lee running it, you're definitely going to be pulling in technology and information from that group to apply it to your games, especially in the Xbox Game Studio family. Now, Microsoft is probably going to license this to third parties or whoever else wants to touch on it. But for Microsoft games, it's going to be like, hey, why don't you use this technology? It gives you better matchmaking. It gives you better AI. And so you can incorporate it. So that is why this is such an important event. It's happening here in just a couple weeks. And as always, you should keep it subscribed to this channel because the only BS here is me.